What if I told you that you could grab a former top-of-the-line, absolute beast of a processor for just 40 bucks? Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're taking a look at a Titan from 8 years ago to see if it can still be a budget gaming champion in 2025. This is the story of the Ryzen 7 1800X.
Okay, let's hop in the time machine and go back to 2017. When AMD first dropped its Ryzen CPUs, the 1800X was the king of the hill, the absolute top dog. It launched with a premium $500 price tag, and for good reason. It was a monster when it came to heavy-duty work. This was a flagship chip through and through.
Now, let's rocket forward to today. That $500 price, it's absolutely cratered. You can find this same 8-core, 16-thread CPU on the used market for around $40. Yeah, you heard that right. That is less than 10% of what it originally cost. On paper, it's an unbelievable deal. But how does it actually game?
And that brings us to the big question, the entire reason we're here. With a price drop that massive, is the Ryzen 7 1800X the secret ultimate bargain for a new gaming PC today? Well, there's only one way to find out. We've got to put it to the test.
So to get our answer, we're setting up a good old-fashioned showdown. We're going to see how this veteran champ from 2017 holds its own against a much younger but still wallet-friendly opponent.
And here are our fighters. In one corner, the veteran, the Ryzen 7 1800X. And in the other, the modern budget king, the Intel Core i3-12300. Now, if you just look at the specs, you'd think the Ryzen has it in the bag. It's got double the cores, double the threads. This is a classic battle, the sheer brute force of an old flagship versus the smarter, leaner architecture of a modern chip.
But hold on, before we throw them in the ring together, let's see if we can squeeze a little more performance out of our old warrior. We're going to test it right out of the box, and then we're going to give it a little tune-up to see what it can really do.
Now, for anyone who might not know, overclocking is basically just pushing a component to run faster than the factory says it should, all for the sake of more performance. For our 1800X, we're giving it a nice little bump from its standard 3.7 GHz on all cores up to a solid 4.0 GHz. The real question is, will that even be enough to make a difference?
And the answer is, yeah, it definitely helps. Look at that, a pretty sweet 15% jump in Counter-Strike 2 and a solid 11% in GTA 5. That is a noticeable improvement. And hey, it's basically free performance. But is it enough to take on a modern chip? Let's find out.
All right, the warm-up is officially over. It is time for the main event. Let's see how our overclocked 1800X stacks up against that brand new Core i3.
We're starting with a real CPU killer of a game, Cyberpunk 2077. And wow, the result is just staggering. Even with that overclock, the 1800X is only hitting 59 frames per second. The Core i3, with literally half the cores, is nearly 50% faster, cruising at 88 FPS. That's not a small gap, folks. That's a canyon.
And it's the exact same story in GTA 5 Enhanced. The overclocked 1800X puts up a respectable 90 FPS, which is totally playable. But the i3 just blows right past it, hitting a crazy 122 FPS on average. The efficiency of that newer architecture is just on another level.
Now you might be thinking, okay, but what about a game that leans more on the graphics card, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? The gap should get smaller, right? Nope. Not what happens. The modern i3 still opens up a huge lead, hitting 112 FPS compared to the 1800X's 83. The trend here is pretty undeniable.
And here it is, the full summary of all our tests. Go ahead and pause here if you want to soak in the numbers, but the story is the same everywhere you look. Across every single game, esports, big open worlds, you name it, the newer Core i3 consistently, and I mean decisively, beats the old Ryzen flagship.
Okay, we've seen the charts, we've looked at the data, the numbers don't lie. But let's translate all this tech talk into some actual, straightforward advice. What's the final takeaway from all this?
So, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. If you are building a completely new gaming PC from scratch right now, today, the Ryzen 7 1800X, as tempting as that $40 price tag is, just isn't the right call. Our big idea at the start? Yep, it turns out it was wrong.
So who is this chip actually for then? Well, for a new build, it's a hard pass. Modern budget CPUs are just in a whole different league. Now, if you're a tinkerer who just loves to mess with stuff and push hardware to its limits, sure, it's a fun $40 project. But, and this is the big twist, if you already own an 1800X, you might just be in the best spot of all.
And why is that? Because the real hero of this story isn't the chip itself, it's the motherboard it plugs into. That AM4 motherboard platform, that's your golden ticket. It unlocks a ridiculously easy and cheap upgrade path.
And it's so simple. You keep the motherboard you already have, you keep your RAM, you do a quick BIOS update, and then you can just drop in a much newer, much more powerful Ryzen CPU. We're talking about a night and day difference in gaming performance without having to buy a whole new computer. That is the real hidden gem of this whole story.
So, no, the 1800X isn't the budget champion we hoped it would be for a new PC. But its story actually teaches us something way more valuable: the incredible long-term power of a great platform. It kind of makes you look at old tech in a whole new light, doesn't it? And it gets me thinking, what's the absolute best tech bargain you've ever stumbled upon? Let us know. Thanks for tuning in.